Alright, first off, I'm using new Sony For starters, I'm using a Sony Action Cam strapped to my head, so I don't know how well the video quality be. But I got a 1999 Chevy Suburban, and what I'm going to do is replace the water pump and put a new radiator in. This one truck has the cooler, trans cooler, and the oil cooler. So I know there's some that are a little bit different, but generally I think the sequence to changing this stuff out is pretty much the same with all GMs. So pull this tensioner off. Basically you push down on the tensioner with your hand, and then you'll be pulling the belt off. Pop that up. Quite simple. Next step is we're going to pull this upper shroud off. There's 1, 2, 3, and then I think the same amount over here on a 10mm bolt. Is this your first time working on a car?
No. Sorry.
Alright, next step, we had took that upper shroud off, and if you can see in here, there's I don't even know what size it is, but close to a 2-inch basically threaded nut that holds the clutch and the blade onto the water pump. And I did think I cheat, but basically use these two tools, some channel locks and rusty ones at that, and a little pinch bar. Get that pinch bar in by them little bolts. I already broke it free, so and it isn't reverse thread or anything, but you gotta put a hell of a lot of, get out of my fucking mouth so I can talk, hell of a lot of force on it, and once it's cracked free, it should spin off and take that whole fan off so you can access the pump. This is the threading that you, it's like I said, take the water pump sitting here, whoa, water pump sitting here, and then that spins on, turn it that way to get it off. But it's tricky, but it can be done. I just did it with minimal tools. Now next step, you can take this, I think you'd be able to take the pump off without this taking this off, but I already got these bolts loose, so I'm taking the pulley off. And then the pump. The radiator hoses are gummed up on there. One thing that helps, grab a pipe wrench and twist around, break it a little bit loose. You can see that, because there's no way that was coming off any other way. Alright, once that housing's off, you got to take your lower radiator hose off. And if you're just changing the water pump, it's about all you got to do. But like I said, I'm pulling the radiator, but I'm going to get the water pump off first. And then go from there. Okay, what you got to do is, if you're taking the water pump off, you got to pull your lower radiator hose off. There's a hose here, release a clamp, and then maybe I can take my camera off. And there's a clamp right there for water outlet. Now there's a 14mm, there's 4 bolts that are a 14mm head. They got to break free and come off to pull the water pump. Once you get all this stuff off, them 4 bolts are actually pretty easy access. Generally they're not very tight, so it ain't too hard to get them off. Alright, on the new water pump I put some high temp RTV sealant. I'll do is put it on both sides of the gasket, not a lot, but enough so it know I can get a good seal without having to redo it again. Done that too many times, not work. But once you do that, I'll show you the next step. Alright, when you got your sealing on both sides of the gasket on the water pump, now you're just basically gonna go and get it to fit in there. Put that on there for added support. Have your helps to have your socket handy. Yep. Okay, that's water pumps in. I end up letting it sit a little bit before I tighten up them 4 bolts. Let that sealant harden up a little, that RTV sealant. And what you do is get them tight, put your 2 hose clamps back on here, put that back on, and put your fan on, tighten that back up, and then we'll put your pulley back on, and then your fan back on. But as of right now, next step is I'm going to be pulling this radiator out quick, so I guess I can go through all that later, but we're going to break some bolts free here and get ready to pull the radiator out. Alright, on the passenger side, if you do have this, I think this is for the transmission side, or it could possibly be just the oil cooler. But that takes a 16 millimeter, and you crack that one, and then down in here, which you probably won't be able to see, is another one. You have to take them free, unscrew them, and then on the other side the same thing. But there's a 13/16 size, and then another 13/16 there. You got to break them free, take your radiator hoses off, and you should be able to take these 2 brackets, finish taking these off, lift the radiator right out. So let's see what happens. And now the radiator, I have everything loose, so unless it hangs up on some of them lines, should be able to take her and pull that mess out. And if you look, this is where I had patched it with JB Weld. That held for over a year, but it's still leaking a little bit, so I'm gonna put a new one in. But alright, what you're gonna want to do is line up your serpentine belt and that after you put that pulley back on and everything's tight and all the bolts or the hoses are on your water pump, and you've got your tensioner here. You want to try to get it down over your idler pulley, which there it is. And then you can continue to put your fan blade back on. As far as the fan blade, it's going to come off on the same way it come off. Just make sure you don't cross thread anything. Tighten that down. Alright, the fan blade's on, everything's on and hooked up. There wasn't, too many steps to doing it. I guess initially to take it apart is you want to take your shroud off, top shroud, there's a few bolts, pulls this out, and then get down inside with either a big wrench or some channel locks and some leverage with a little pry bar. Crack this free, unscrew that. Then there's 4 bolts, they're 10 millimeter bolts. will pull a pulley off, but you just, well, one, of course, relieve tension by pushing on a tensioner for the serpentine belt, pulling that off, pull that pulley off, them 4 bolts, take it off, and reverse everything to put that back on. Now what I'm going to do is drop the new radiator in. Alright, once you got your radiator in, one thing you can do, unless you're 100% sure you're going to have no leaks or anything, is once you get your transmission line hooked up and oil cooler lines and put your radiator hoses on, which I got to do this one yet, is fill her up with, it takes 2.5 gallons of antifreeze to 2.5 gallons of water, which gives you the 50-50 mix. But before you completely put everything back together, you can fill it up and run it a while and see if you develop any leaks anywhere. And if you got a leak, that's much less stuff you have to take apart to repair it. So that's what I'm going to do next, is fill it up with antifreeze and water. Alright, I got it running to help circulate some of that antifreeze in there and checking for leaks. So far everything's good. One thing you're going to have to do is let it warm up. There's enough water or antifreeze in the block originally. I guess if you already got a 50-50 mix, it won't matter. But I was running this thing with pure water, so I have to get 2.5 gallons of antifreeze in it. So I'm going to have to let it circulate a while and then get it in there. But obviously, there must be at least 1.5 gallons of water in the block even after you pull the water pump and everything off. So we'll see what happens here. Alright, got everything back together and seems to be running good. No leaks. You could try to do a quick cap here of what I did. Was initially, if you want to change the water pump, you're going to have to take your upper shroud off, which is simply there's 3 bolts on top, 2 on each side. That comes up. First step would be that big nut on the fan itself. They said using some kind of if you got a big enough size wrench, which I have no idea what it is, or channel locks, get some leverage on there and crack that free, pull that fan off, and then just push on the tensioner with your hand, pull the serpentine belt off, 4 10mm bolts, pull the pulley off, and then you have access to the water pump. Unhook the hoses, pull the water pump off, get your new one, put your gasket material and that on, put it on, reverse the process. The radiator's, of course, simpler. You're going to pull your upper shroud off, and same way, and then you're just going to unhook if you got your transmission lines, you unhook that, and your oil lines, if you got them, 16mm and a 13/16. Unhook your lower radiator hose, your upper one, pull these 2 brackets right here off, and your radiator will lift right out, put your new one in, and reverse the process. It's not that hard. This is the first time I had replaced this. This truck's got about 250,000 miles on it, so I think we're good to go here.